Hey, Dan. Slide it down a little carefully if that would be better. All right, that's when the microphone. Yeah, it's visitors. Round Lake gas, I think. Do you see it? Visitors. Yeah, lowercase. I know. I think. Sorry. I didn't say anything. It's okay. Yeah, Mark never responded.
No, we were just kind of late. Gathering up whatever we had over here last weekend.
Mike, you got everything you need?
You want to grab?
You want an extra small or anything? No, you're good. All right. All right, we're counting down. Here it is. Oh, we are gonna have one of our applicants attend by Zoom. And our mayor has so kindly set this up so that we're zooming out to the window, I guess, whoever wants.
In theory.
In theory. All right, so we might as well wait for that. Although is he dialed in yet?
No.
Oh. All right, so welcome everybody to this version of the zoning board meeting, chair and.
Or introduce yourself. Dan Curtis, member.
Or the ranch member.
Maya McDonough, member.
And then Alex Cicero, recording secretary. I'll be asking for your names if you decide to public comment.
Okay, so, first order of business, exactly where the agenda we just go over the minutes, and we have two sets of minutes. And hopefully I'll include them in my pack. There it is. So we have our minutes from our 11/21/22 meeting, which Lori was so kind to take. Did I get the wrong thing? Yeah.
Yeah, we had some open questions.
I agree. I went through it.
Oh, great.
I actually think that we ought to circulate our comments and then table it for next week.
Yeah.
All right, are you okay with that, Maya?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I looked at it and said, you know, I think we need just to go over our respective comments and make sure it's in order. And
You want a motion and a vote on that, or do you?
all right, then we have meeting minutes from November 21st, which was a long time ago. And that was basically our application. What, did you put the meeting
The
minutes?
minutes from 10/28? Yeah, from 10/28, and that was special use permit for short-term rental of 11 Ames Ave.
Correct,
That's what it
and then I mean, I read it, my only comment on those minutes was that you spell out our names only like DS to. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it said just the addition.
okay.
Mr. Peterson.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you? Introduce yourself, kind sir.
Sorry,
Introduce yourself. Never here.
I'm Tom Peterson, attorney for the zoning board of appeals.
There you go. A very important. man. Does anybody have any other comments on the video? Frederick.
Proper record.
Okay, motion to approve,
I'll make a motion.
second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, so we have two applications before us. And forgive me, if I mispronounced their names, I have probably been reading this way. But before we get to that, I just want to lay out the groundwork for how the meeting is to be conducted. I will have the applicant, present what it is they intend to, get to us. How to jump on the application, how to meet with the requisites of the law. We will then, or during, because it's sort of informal, we will be asking questions of the applicant and getting the information we need to make a decision. After the applicant presents, I will allow public comment on that particular application. So we have it from you before we make our decision. What I do want to preface this with is that we've gotten a lot of comments. Folks, you know that. You're here because we get a lot of it. And by all means, feel free to address us, irrespective of whether you provide written comments or not. But a lot of the comments involve what I would call legislative decision making. In other words, there shouldn't be in this area, you know, this isn't right for this area. I understand that. I understand that's how you feel. However, the law is passed, our law, as the zoning board, is to apply the law as it's written. All right, the law was enacted for the party that made it. And before it was part of the village, obviously. But comments like it shouldn't be here, that's a matter for the zoning board. It's not a matter for the zoning board. Zoning board has no authority to change what's written in the law. So we apply what's written. With that in mind, I'm just telling you, by all means, make yourself heard, yourselves heard, and we will listen. So the first application we have is Miguel Diaz Luis. Did I get that right, Miguel?
He's in Mexico right now.
Oh, that's right, he's our Zoom member, that's correct. He has not called in yet? Oh dear. All right, we're gonna bypass Miguel and we're gonna go on, we only have two applications. We're gonna go on to Melissa Call. Melissa,
Yeah, I'm here.
hi, did I get your name right?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi. So we have your application here and
Oh, yes.
let's see, you provided a list of everybody that you notified, right?
Yeah.
So that, thank you. What are the question marks you need on the list?
No, there were, I think those would be numbers, not questions.
Oh, okay.
They're not the numbers of the homes. Yeah.
All right, hold on a minute. It could be that I should be using you with the prior application. All right, you state firm basically that you notified folks and your neighbors.
Yeah.
You have a list of those folks that you notified?
I can provide an actual list, but basically we're on Human Loop and
Right.
Grand Landings. We live everywhere from number 5 up to number 27 on our side of the street and across from 16 to 20, which we believe is the 200 yards.
Okay.
further that's
Here.
required.
Peter, can you introduce yourself so folks know who you are? I'm sure everybody does.
I'm Peter Sheridan, the code enforcement officer for the village.
Anybody goes in,
No, I don't know.
you don't know. All right.
I just notified, we had that form that Tom
Yeah.
put together and it was sent to the 3 people that have already applied, not to the new people.
I sort of had that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right.
We just got this application today.
Oh, really?
It was just emailed today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so I see, all right, Ms. Cole,
Yeah,
it says on the top of the second submission. Because I didn't know this was on either, I just figured being who I am and being computer illiterate that I just missed it in my email. But so, is this your first application?
so there was a confusion, I believe. So in November, I attended the meeting. I had mailed an application in. I don't know if I mailed it to the incorrect address. And I had notified my neighbors by email. After I attended the meeting, I realized I needed to resubmit, but I hadn't seen what date the meeting was. So I realized it's week that I'm out of town, that the meeting was tonight, and so I brought my application down in person again. I'm not sure where it went. I did mail it somewhere in the
All right.
building.
we have trouble in the village with mail.
Yep.
If you don't use a PO box, you're not gonna get your letter. So if you sent it to whatever, a street
It
address,
wasn't clear to me where it had
It
to be
didn't go.
submitted, the submission form wasn't, the instructions weren't entirely clear, like what PO box to send it to, so I thought I sent it. to the zoning board, but I honestly don't recall, it was a month ago. So I resubmitted today and I only had the zoning board number, it's not like a clear place where you put the form. On the current ones. So I just dropped it off.
It's sort of hyper-technical, but no, this is important. And I didn't realize that our agenda included you, which is good. However, what did Alex, can you pull up what our notice said that was published by Kim?
It included,
It included this?
I'm sorry, hold on, I'm looking for her system. Cause I thought she missed it and then came back around, but I remember seeing. I remember seeing 9 Holman Loop, but it wasn't. Your name is called, I think it was Coleman's name who was on it.
There's Brian Coleman.
Yeah.
Okay with that.
No, I'm just saying, I think I remember seeing a Coleman application
Oh,
when it was titled, so I just think
oh,
it
I see.
so, yeah, so I only listed it as 9 Coleman Loop.
No, I'm talking about, here's my issue. here's my issue. It's just, it's technical, but it's important, and that is notice to anybody who wants to be here for your application to be here. So we did post 5 days before the meeting, whatever the statutory requisite is. Kim posts in the hall there, she says, hey, we're gonna have a meeting that's gonna involve, you know, nine Hillman Loop and 33 Hillman Loop. All right, and that's the notice to the public. That's gonna happen. So I'm concerned hearing about how this developed. I'm concerned that that notice may not have said that. In fact, the notice may still be posted. Can I be a little crazy and go out or view that?
I found it.
Oh, you
So,
found it?
okay, so it's hereby given that Round Lake Village Zoning Board of Appeals is scheduled a hearing on Tuesday, December 20th, 2022 at 6:30 in the village. Community room 49 Burlington Ave. Appeal
I've been working, I just sent him.
2022-3, Diaz Wedge 33 Home Loop are seeking a special use permit to operate short-term rentals in their home. All persons in support with any objections thereto shall be heard by order of the Round Lake Zoning Board of Appeals. And that's it.
So we have a problem. Because we didn't notice, we didn't. Sure, everybody is here who wants to speak to it, I have a feeling, but that's not, it doesn't meet statutory requirements. We need to provide appropriate notice. So, I hate to do this because I really wanted to wrap this up in one section. But,
Dan?
Yes,
We've been in touch with Miguel and he clicked on tomorrow's meeting. So I sent him the link for tonight's meeting, so.
okay, thanks. It's probably my fault, but find out. Mr. Peters, do you have anything to say about that?
Notice is a legal requirement.
Yeah.
We can still, take general questions and look at minutes and so forth.
We can
but
certainly
can't
do
address
that.
These specific applications.
What I'm going to suggest is that we're going to notice this is going to come on whenever we have our next meeting, which won't be all that long considering what we have to take to deal with. But since folks came who may want to discuss this,
Yeah, I did walk around and even know as many people as can be fine in person. I had let them know a month ago about it, but I didn't know the date for the meeting, and I just found out myself, which is why I locked it down.
I also hesitate to have people present their comments without having heard from you first. Because that's sort of unfair to you. So what I'm going to suggest to everybody here who wants to comment on this and to you is that we're going to have to wait until the next meeting where it's properly noticed. And that should be either, well, it's going to be every Christmas, put it that way.
But we can take the Diaz.
I hope so, Mr. Diaz is going, well, we're going to take it no matter what.
Right.
Unless he has a technical difficulty.
It's an opportunity for them.
Miguel just said he's in, or he thinks he's in, that true here.
What's that?
I'm in contact with Miguel.
You are.
Yeah. He's really nice
Mm,
right now, but,
That's great.
No,
so.
Maybe he's still on the wrong thing.
I may have sent him the wrong one because I had an invite.
I just sent him-
The other one. But now it's getting fixed.
I sent him the new one a minute
That's
or
what he
two
said,
ago.
that you send a new link.
I just sent him another one. Have him try that one.
I didn't realize it was missing. I haven't looked at the
We didn't have it. Yeah.
back on. I told you, I haven't told them tomorrow morning. When I put
Right.
it underneath.
We're just
Dan.
hanging out for Miguel.
Other Dan. What is the time requirement on notification? So I sent an email out today to everyone saying that the zoning board meeting was tonight and discussing this.
Well, we posted that, Kim posted that before.
Oh, but it didn't include Melissa's?
Yeah.
Didn't include.
No, it just.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just had
It just had Miguel. That's the problem.
Okay, well, there's Miguel.
Oh, there.
Hi,
Oh, how are you?
thank you. Well, thanks. Thanks for your patience with me on that.
Oh, no. Did I shoot you the wrong link? You can throw me under the bus, it's okay.
No, I think I had a link for a wrong date and I clicked on it, even though it clearly said it was for tomorrow. So I never had one, I guess.
All right, well, Miguel, tell us about your application.
I don't know what to tell you. I did all the stuff, I think, to the best of my ability on that list. The main thing seemed to be notifying people nearby, so I just used Google. I did a thing to figure out distance from my house, and I emailed everybody but one person who didn't seem to have an email shared, and I just dropped the letter off at her front door.
Is that the question mark? That's the question mark that I was talking about. Was that the question mark, people? Is that the question
Yeah,
mark?
that was the one person. Yes, that's exactly right. She had question mark because I didn't have an email.
All right, so Miguel, there's a couple things the law requires. It requires essentially a term of residency. And by that, I mean that you are permitted to rent for a period of 6 months, but you're also required to be a resident of the premises for a period of 6 months. All right, is that your intention?
Yeah.
Okay, tell us
So,
how do you foresee that will be divvied up, or how will you do that?
well, our goal is to travel for like 4 to 6 months of the year, but you know, we're not quite there yet. It's a goal. So the most we've ever done is 3, 4 out of the year, where we're just out away from the house. The rest of the time, we're living in the house all week. During the week, we work there. It's our place to work. And typically we host people on weekends. It's pretty rare when it's not a weekend. And we live at our parents' house in Boston Spa during the weekends. In the summer, the way we hope it works is the way it's always worked for us. We pretty much spend every weekend camping. So it's a deal for us where we leave. So I don't work Fridays. So Friday, we clean up the house. A guest would come in. They stay there all weekend. We come Sunday. We come home. That's how we hope it works in the summer. So it's going to be mostly weekends, and then we're away fully for a few months of the year. And if we're lucky, we could have it rented for most of that, even though most of that will also be weekends.
Okay, I see. So you would contemplate renting it for as much as you could when you were gone for 3 or 4 months,
Exactly.
and weekends at disparate times of the year.
Right. Which looks like it's going to be summer is going to be the popular time, because we're not, it looks like this is not a popular time.
Okay, now I want to press on you and potential applicant that the definition does say 6 full months, and that is not. I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't go away. It doesn't mean that you can't take a couple weeks vacation during that time, but it means
Sure.
Substantial residential presence.
Sure.
6, whether they're contiguous or not, 6 months out of the
Yeah.
year, right? And that's something that you would have to commit to, obviously, for every other applicant. And is that okay? Do you understand that?
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay, and just for the folks in the audience too, that is an enforcement issue. I mean, that's whether the 6 months predicate is observed is a matter for the building inspector to be aware of, be made aware of, but it's an issue, because if the village were to determine, the building inspector, that in fact that wasn't being adhered to, that would be cause revocation of the permit. And I'm laying it out like this because these are cases of first impression, so I think we need to be very clear understanding of what's required. All right, so you have your prospective tenants. Do you have any structure with respect to informing them of what the rules of the road are for the village, about parking? And we'll talk about parking separately, about, for lack of a better term, standard of conduct about tenants. I mean, the kinds of things that you would want to see your neighbors adhere to.
Yeah. So we're using Airbnb. I don't foresee doing anything else, and they specifically allot a section for here's house rules. That doesn't just mean house rules; it's community rules too. So And those are the ones that are listed at the top. No parking off the street, which we already have a sign that says that. So I mean, people should just know that. But yeah, we reinforce all those, and that any rule broken is grounds for eviction, like immediate eviction, no refund. So
Can you,
the ones I can think off the top of my head that we listed are the parking. The parking one is the one I can think of off the top of my head.
right, and what parking are you providing?
I'm sorry, what?
What parking are you providing?
The garage. So we move our car. My brother holds our car. He lives in Clifton Park. So when we go away, my niece picks up my car, leaves it in Clifton Park. So they have access to the garage, and they can park there and they can park in the driveway.
How many spots is that entail?
Inside we fit 2 cars in the garage. You could fit 2 cars on the driveway as well. But you know, that's, I don't know. We only allow like 4 adults. So I don't think we ever had more than a car.
So, yeah, that's it. That's 2 bedrooms,
3 bedrooms.
but you only allow 4 adults.
Yeah, it's like 6 max, but it's like 4 adults, 2, you know, and kids kind of deal.
Right. Well,
If you get more than,
makes a difference.
Huh?
If you were, sorry, I have to speak loudly, I guess. If you were to rent out 3 rooms, how many spaces are required for 3 room rental? Is that just 3 spaces?
I'm sorry, there's like a little bit of the echo in the sound.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I was addressing a question to Peter, I'm just not sure.
We don't have a requirement for,
That's fine. We just didn't have it. But I think it's fair to say that for each of all.
Yeah, I want to. So 3 rooms would be 3 parking spaces, they have 4.
It's ridiculous. But I think he's saying that they're gonna have.
I know.
Yeah.
But if it were 3, there would still be adequate parking. If they were renting out, we're having a little bit of conversation. If
Okay.
they were renting out 3 rooms at a time, they would need at least 3 parking spaces. And he has 4. The difference is if in fact the 3rd would have put him over the top, for instance, he only had 2, I would have suggested that he affirmed for us as a condition of approval that would only rent 2 bedrooms. But that isn't the case. Right? I mean, that's up for discussion. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah,
So
right?
you're suggesting adequate correlates with the number of bedrooms in terms of parking availability?
Well, number of people too, obviously, but I do.
Well, it depends on if they're
The rule
children
says
under
that
12.
2 tenants per bedroom,
Exactly,
Correct.
not including children.
right, 2 tenants, and that would normally be a couple. I mean, if in fact,
I mean, 4 seems adequate. If-
I think so. For this one.
Notwithstanding other-
We may
other
get different applications. All right, you mentioned that you have essentially rules of the road that are encompassed in the
Mhm.
could you email that to the board, or could you email
Sure.
that?
Yeah, I could do that.
All right. Alex, could you take care of that? Give him your email address.
I would like, though, just a summary of what some of those rules are. I mean, because we're
Oh,
expected to
absolutely
make
go
a
there.
decision on that,
So we don't
so,
have to make it.
yeah.
But yes, I agree. In fact, I've been talking too much. Why don't we? Folks, you got questions? There's a lot more to cover.
Yeah, I'd like to start with, if you could give us a quick rundown of some of the high notes from your, code of conduct for your tenants. I'd like to hear a little bit about the kinds of expectations that you set for them.
Sure, I'm just gonna pull it up on my app here in a sec.
Oh, if you can send it to us now, that would be great. We can just.
I'm gonna try to screenshot here, I think. Okay, so. Can I do that? Yes, I can. So basically Airbnb lets you check things like X them or check them, right? So there's a predefined set list of house rules. For example, events aren't allowed. You can't do a party. So even though we're allowed to make noise in our town up to the, say 10 p.m., there are no parties allowed. So if anybody that's on the guest list for the house are the only people allowed in the house, right? So if 4 people made a reservation, I have 4 people's emails, those 4 people can be in the house, not the kids don't count, but that's it. And anybody else that you invited in, if it's not like a delivery person, that's grounds for, you broke the rule. Smoking, vaping, e-cigarettes, not allowed. Pets are not allowed. We recently made an exception this weekend, first time, and we had a complaint that their dog got out. So we're seriously reconsidering that. It sets the quiet hours, right? Whether photography is allowed, check-in and check-out time.
And what
Then
are those
there's
quiet
food.
hours, Miguel?
Quiet hours, it's
Yeah,
10
before-
p.m. to quiet hours.
Yep,
It's 10 p.m. to 8 a.m.
thank you.
And I have a smart home. I'm very nerdy. I have smart speakers. All my speakers volume goes down automatically at 10 p.m. And I let people know that, like, don't freak out. All volume goes down on speakers because I need to do that for me because we have house that touches our neighbor's house. So I get in trouble with my neighbor often forgetting to, I used to get, forgetting to lower the volume. So that goes down automatically. Then there's indoor rules that, shoes in the house, that kind of thing. Then there's outdoor rules, which has to do with the deck, really. There's gear in the garage, kayaks and stuff that they can use. And there's rolling the garbage and recycling out Mondays at 9 a.m. because that's the time, by 9 a.m. because that's the time that we need to have that out. If they happen to be staying through that time, which is again pretty rare because most people leave Sunday. And then checkout instructions is basically, return the garage remote, pack up all your food and belongings, close the garage door behind you, dump the garbage and recycling. It's pretty standard. Oh, and let us know if you broke anything. That's the standard set of house rules. Let's see.
Is there anything that you could add to that?
Is there anything I need to add to that?
That you think you should add?
I'm sorry.
Is there anything that you think you should add to that? It's not true.
Well, Julie and I are thinking about the dog rule. There's a lot of people that have pets that want to join, and we want to say just pets that obviously are controlled and all that, but also that don't have fur, because we don't want, because furry pets are, can agitate allergies and it's harder to clean up after them. Like one strain of fur can get on a curtain and just stay stuck there, where, your poodles and your Cocker Spaniels, it's much easier. They don't shed so much. That's one we're playing with. That's really it. You got any ideas?
Well, I have a feeling that the pet issue may come up. You might be hearing.
Yeah.
I don't personally have much of a concern other than a lot of apartment complexes put weight limitations on dogs because big dogs, of course, are scarier to people. My daughter has a pit bull. They don't scare me, but they scare a lot of people. And when they bite you, it hurts. So
no, I get that. I used to be scared of big dogs. My wife helped me actually.
I'm just thinking you may want to consider, but
yeah. Unfortunately, Airbnb app doesn't seem to let you specify. It's either pets are allowed or not allowed, and we want to say like, okay, this breed, any breeds with fur, not okay. Any breeds with hair, okay. They also tend to be lighter, but it doesn't seem to let us do that. So we're trying to figure out that part.
well, you may want to not allow it so you can figure that out, because I imagine encompasses your advertising, so that these people are signing up without having access to any of your individual rules that you may apply, right? Like,
right.
you don't have an option then to put in your own requirements.
Yeah, unfortunately, we actually had it set to no pets allowed and somebody begged us individually. We said, okay, we'll allow it this weekend. And because they were in a jam, like they had got dislocated locally. And so, okay, we allowed it. And then, but then we try to see if there was any way to, do more fine grain control, and there was none. So I'm going to talk to other people that have more experience there, maybe to see what we can do about that. They might just say it's all or nothing.
Okay. If somebody needs to get the village, if there's a problem, if the village needs to get a hold of you when you're
Uh-huh.
out, how do you contemplate them being allowed, enabled to do that? Do you leave a phone number they can get you at? Because we're going to require that.
The tenants can access me through the app,
Okay.
and through the app will also text me, and I'm always available. I never travel where I'm not available because I have to have internet connection and work. I still work. I don't just vacation. I'm working during the week, Monday through Thursday. And then my wife also always connected. And then we've got 2 sets of backups for
That's
if we were available. So we've got 2 sets of cousins that are local. So if anything were to happen where, somebody needed to go there and hire a plumber to do a thing or something, we've got 2 sets of local backups all the time.
So I would, if the board decides to grant you the application, I would ask that a condition be set that you leave with the village, with the code enforcement officer, a contact, the same thing.
Like a list.
Whatever,
So,
whatever it is,
yeah.
so that you can be reached in case there's an emergency or,
I have a question. I'm Maya, member of the board. So you've kind of used your Airbnb for how long prior to our time today?
I remember we started at the end of the summer, let's say September, beginning of September.
And have you encountered any violations of your good conduct rules other than the dog that you've spoken about?
Well, 2 tenants so far have caused some sort of damage or spill and then didn't tell us. So we just found it. It almost always seems, both times I think it was people with kids. So I think a kid might have done a thing and not said anything. So that's why we added the rule of please look around and see if you find damage and then let us know. We just want to don't want a stain to sit there for longer than it has to. That's been the biggest rule that we've seen broken.
Has there been anything that affected the neighborhood or the neighbors that you would have been reported to?
Yes. So one time somebody played something that they plugged in themselves. It wasn't my speakers past 10 p.m. The neighbor let me know, hey, noise. And we contacted them and they turned it down. They were very apologetic.
Okay.
So we've had 1 noise complaint and we had 1 this weekend recently, a dog getting loose.
Okay, so you've been very responsible and responded promptly.
Yeah. I think the tenants have been better at the music noise thing than I have, honestly. I've annoyed my neighbor many times with my music, and I have to remember to turn it off at 10.
Thank you.
I've got questions for Tom, but otherwise I'm good with Miguel.
okay. Mr. Peterson. Tom, have you looked over the farmer's insurance policy?
$500,000 personal liability.
That's sufficient?
Sufficient, that's what is called for in our code. It is sufficient.
Okay. Yeah.
I do have one question though for the applicant.
Yes.
The letter or sample letter that you sent us does not give the time and date and location of this hearing. Was there an email that covered this letter or some other way that the people who were notified of when this hearing was going to take place?
Oh, I only found out about the meeting because a friend texted me. I think I missed whatever notification I was supposed to receive.
We do
Yeah,
have
so I didn't.
we do have a sample letter on our website that will guide you to the information that needs to be provided in order for there to be adequate notice. I'm not sure that we have adequate notice here.
Oh, I think I'm confused. I'm not sure I understand the question.
Neighbors need to be put on notice of when your application is going to be heard.
Oh, yes. Yep, I got that part, but I didn't notify them of this hearing, is what you're saying.
The notice that you've shown us does not give the date, time, location of the hearing.
Oh, I didn't realize I was supposed to do that.
That's all right.
Okay.
This could
Okay,
be-
so
Oh,
okay, so I messed that up. Okay.
it won't kill you.
Should I just send it out? Well, I don't know what to do now.
You know what we're going to do, and we're gonna hear public comment after we finish grilling you, all right? We're gonna hear public comment, we're gonna discuss the matter, all right? If the
Mhm.
board is disposed to approve the application, we will not approve it tonight, but condition, all right? On you providing adequate notice, we'll put it on for the next meeting, same meeting as we're going to deal with 9 Hillman. All right, and then we'll afford the public an opportunity to again comment if they choose to, if anybody different comes. All right,
Gotcha.
seems to be a
And
reasonable way to deal with it.
if you have any question about the adequacy of your letter, you can always contact me and I would be happy to look at it and suggest any changes that might be necessary.
Okay, is that Peter I'm hearing?
You're hearing Tom Peterson.
Tom Peterson,
Our
Tom
attorney.
Peterson. Tom Peterson, yes. Okay, all right, we'll do.
telephone number if you'd like.
I think Miguel, you gotta speak louder, Tom.
Yes, telephone number?
518 899 1518.
Okay, so 518 899 1518.
That's it.
And I can ask about notification letter.
Yes. I'll give you my email. You can show me your letter. I can make
Okay.
these questions. I can answer any other questions regarding procedure.
Okay,
I'll
I
have
have a quick
thank
question
you.
for you that might help give some context to this, that, I have 2 of them actually. One of them is, so one thing that was sent along to us were the bylaws for the Victorian Landing Homeowners Association. I gave a read through that and I didn't see anything that really spoke to this, but I was just curious, not that we have to abide by anything by the HOA rules, but it does play into questions of adverse impact on the neighborhood relative to, call it expectations. So just curious if you saw anything in there yourself that seemed relevant to this.
I didn't see anything that was, I guess the legal term would be dispositive that would
Right.
control this. We did ask the chair of the homeowners association to have the HOA's attorney send us a letter as to whether it was the HOA's position that short-term rentals were or were not permitted under the rules and regulations and covenants that bind all of the, we were told we would get such a letter. I haven't seen one. It may have come in. Dan, did you get one?
No, I did not.
Gary, nothing you guys see there?
Yeah.
Okay. I have one other question for you, Tom. So in the local law, number 2 of 2021, there's not much for us to go on in terms of judging the qualifications, if you were. I mean, there's some sort of matter of fact things like, liability insurance and occupancy and all that. But really the only sort of subjective thing that's up for consideration is the language in sub 3, which says the grant of a special permit will not adversely affect the neighborhood. So when we consider that, from the building board, and I guess I'll revisit the fact that I still don't believe it. The zoning board should be addressing this because it's not an actual appeal, but, the fact of the matter is we usually have at least some, very specific, characteristics that we can consider, right? Like environmental, quality or that kind of thing. Is there anything, maybe during the legislative process that we can discuss that would qualify what an adverse impact is, or is this, can we lean on the regulatory structure from the, from NICOM and from other, agencies that have kind of provided guidance on like.
Well, the factors that usually are before the ZBA have to do with variances.
Correct, that's what I'm saying.
Although
So-
this form seems to say variance application, this is not, this is an application for a special use permit.
Indeed, yeah, so that's what I'm saying, is that we don't have those characteristics that are disclosable, those attributes. I'm just curious if there's anything in the code that says, if we're trying to determine what an adverse impact is, like what should we be considering? I mean, certainly, a lot of upset neighbors seems like an adverse impact.
Well, I think there's one word that you have to read into that, and that is material, whether there's a material adverse impact.
Well, the word material is not in here, unfortunately.
No, but I think it can be read.
Okay. But again, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm sure there's a lot of folks here who talk about this who are either in favor of it or against it, and I'm trying to figure out the extent to which those opinions and feelings are material, as it were. So that we're judging this based on whatever the law intended or not, right? Just opinion.
I'm poking around here trying to find that there's a provision on what has to be considered for a special use permit.
All good.
Now, special use permit, yes. Covered.
Although while you do that, could you just clarify what Dan brought up in terms of the regulations, in terms of the relationship between village law and the homeowners association?
Oh, sure.
Regulations, just so that's clearly on the record.
Yeah, well, as I'm sure folks know, the homeowners association can regulate for you, for the landings, codes of conduct, right? What it is that's permitted, what isn't. That's the nature of a homeowners association in part. And it's clear that the homeowners association could prohibit short-term rentals, should it choose to do that, or not, or permit it. We did ask for an opinion as to whether, at least under the current iteration of the rules, whether the homeowners association thought it was permitted or not. We didn't get that answer, and that's okay. We're proceeding. We're gonna deal with the application, but that application is also separate and apart from the actions of the homeowners association if it chooses to take action to prohibit the.
So let me just be clear, the homeowners association would supersede the village law in this map.
If it chose to
If
act,
it chose to act,
and they would do that the way any board would.
right.
Right.
But without that, we only have the village law as our guide.
Absolutely correct.
Yes, okay, I want that on the record.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was getting to.
Yeah. Now, the other thing I can address, or I'd like to address, the adverse impacts. We did discuss that briefly last meeting. And the way I look at it is that, look, we've got a law that pertains on its face to Victorian landings as well as to RD1, RD2 general in the village, right? And so it's understood that the housing structures that are there are suitable, unless there's special circumstances, obviously, health and safety or anything like that, are suitable for the village. Thus, concerns that, well, look, we have shared walls, this shouldn't be here, all right? Are irrelevant because it's already been determined in the legislation that this is available for Victorian landings.
For any adverse impact, to be clear though, somebody who doesn't live somewhere is staying somewhere, their behavior is clearly gonna be different than the person who actually.
That is the key to short-term rental, and that's the key to residency.
Well, it's not an assumption for me.
Well, I think it is.
No, I don't think that, but it's just, you have a sublet. Now, if you're just renting to somebody, same issue, if you're away for a month out of the year. There's a point, the point is that just because we're airing the laundry, this is great. Just because this happens to be a different structure than this part of the village has, doesn't mean that the law doesn't pertain to them. It does.
Oh, I'm making this assessment of the whole village. I don't think it's just about the Point Lake. What I'm saying is
No.
that if we don't have, it seems to me like your reading or the reading that I'm hearing is there's nothing that could adversely impact neighborhood. I just don't think.
Not true, and I'll give you an
True is the
example.
case.
I'll give you an example. We get one of these, we get two of these, then we get 10 of them in an area. There's gonna come a point where it's saturation. All right, perhaps, I mean, that's the kind of adverse, or in the building, parking, if you don't have adequate parking, obviously, but that totally rolled into it.
But I guess what Maya had asked just a few minutes ago, would sort of spoke to this, which is that, Maya asked, have you had any complaints, right, against that code of conduct that they've had? If there are a number of complaints about a particular property, that seems to me like it would be an adverse impact, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the potential for those complaints is an adverse impact.
And I don't know that I follow that. I mean, I do follow, I don't know that I agree with that. The potential for something to happen isn't the happening of the thing, all right? I don't know about how the neighbors feel about Mr. Diaz's rental of the property. I know there's a dog issue. All right, so other than that, have there been issues, all right? And that may be pertinent. If you have a homeowner who has a history of not assuring and ensuring that there's not going to be adverse behavior from his tenants, that's a reason for the code enforcement officer to pull the permit. Right, that's right in the law, all right? So that if in fact the rental of the property becomes a nuisance, it gets shut down.
Yeah, it can be revoked.
Exactly right.
Correct, I think you meant that in the last subsection there. What I'm trying to understand though is I still haven't heard a single thing that would qualify as an adverse impact against the neighborhood prior to it actually happening. So like, for example, if we were considering an area variance or lot coverage or something like that, we would say it changes the character of the neighborhood. We would say we could say that there might be an environmental issue, right? And so what I'm trying to ascertain here is to what extent does increased presence of non-residents impact that,
To me, and this is very personal to me, it's not a board, but to me, it's a matter of, sorry, we're getting focused on this, but to me, it's a matter of cumulative impact. That I think that's where that really comes in. At the inception of this, when we're dealing with a few applications, that is not going to be an issue. I think it could be an issue later, but frankly, I agree with you to the extent that I don't see. If you dot all your I's and cross all your T's, and there's no history of malfeasance and all that good stuff, then I don't see an adverse impact in this because there's a grant to do it. That's what the law gives you. It gives you the right to do it. So I understand exactly where your concern is, but I think I think that concern. I think it's really a future impact. But that's just me.
Unless someone was going to say, I want to rent out my 3 bedrooms for 14 people or something.
well, that would be a clear violation.
Well, yeah.
Other standards, right? Like,
We don't have any evidence. Until after the fact.
Yeah, that's,
But
Yeah.
May I make a comment? I don't know.
go ahead.
So what I think I'm kind of hearing the discussion here, and what I think a lot of people in the audience are gonna wanna talk about is the fact that when we can't assume the people who are going to be renting are going to divert from the approved code of conduct from both our village and the Airbnb and what he sets forth. And without having past precedents, which is a history of malfeasance, which is what Maya was saying, then you can't call it an adverse impact. So without having a history there, you don't really take into consideration the potential for future complaints to negatively impact the application.
Okay. All right. Any other board discussion before we open it up to public comment?
Did you find anything, Tom?
The section, for special permits, 180-30C doesn't really provide much
No.
guidance at all. It's more vague language, although it does reference traffic several times. And I think that we have the requirements of the local law for off-street parking probably take care of that.
Right. Okay. Anything else, board? All right, I'm gonna open this up to public comment. I see you had your hand up first.
Hi, my name is Peter DePava, 31 Hillman Loop. My wife Linda Bach owns the property. Based on what I've heard you say, and I've listened very carefully, I would think possibly that if Victoria Land was built prior to your laws, you would have taken into consideration townhouses into what's good for the area and what's not good for the area. For an example, after the invention of the smoke detector, it took a while for a law to come in and say every house puts that smoke detector. I would say if the majority of the people in Round Lake all live in townhouses, your laws would be different.
Danny, may I respond to that?
Absolutely.
Villages are run by 3 separate boards.
I understand.
And the board that your concern should be addressed to is the village board of
I
trustees.
understand, and I'm glad I brought that up, but I'm just bringing it up. If you had Victoria Land prior to your laws, you would have reconsidered some of the possibilities of what could happen because of the proximity of Saratoga and the North Country, the Adirondacks, a vacation.
No, sir. No, sir,
Okay.
because
That's my opinion.
this board doesn't have those considerations. And
I know that.
you're addressing comments that are irrelevant to this board. I encourage you to bring them to the correct board.
I could just say that the zoning, the Airbnb law was passed in reaction to the opening of an Airbnb in the village. This law came into effect because somebody opened an Airbnb in the village probably about a year and a half ago. Victoria Landing was up and running.
Yeah. But I fully understand what you're saying, but Mr. Peterson's absolutely correct. The board, it's not the board. I understand concern. I don't mean concern flippantly. I mean, I understand. But as I said at the beginning of the meeting, this is a local law that applies to the entirety of the village. For better or for worse. Yes, sir.
Just clarification for me.
And your name is?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mark Van Geisling and 5 Hilton Loop Village. It's my understanding from this discussion that if the HOA has rules that are more restrictive than the village's rules, that's okay, but it can't be less restrictive.
That's correct. You can put that well.
Okay. If in fact we're addressing the application for Mr. Diaz tonight, why is he in operation already?
months.
Well, what I can say is that really is not a matter for the board unless there were lots of complaints to show some kind of malfeasance. that's really a matter for the village and enforcement. And I think Peter's been very clear, at least in some of the communications, about how he feels about it. And do you
Before
want
we
to
speak about it, I mean, I didn't know that there was an Airbnb in Victoria Landing. And I'm assuming Mr. Diaz has been booking his Airbnb for months ahead, you know, I don't know, so probably he's booked for next summer. So when I found out that there was an Airbnb and he's operating, and he's been operating for a while, how could I tell him to stop his, you know, I could say no more booking as of now, but you're booked for the summer, I can't tell these people they can't come here, I'm not gonna show you.
We'll allow everybody an opportunity. Really well, and we can take all night, that is fine with me, right? So don't worry about it. But I don't want the arguments, all right? The fact is that it is the discretion of village, all right, discretion of the building code enforcement officer as approved by his employer, all right, to take action or not take action. And that discretion is legally recognized. I will tell you, and again, this is not essentially ZBA role to get involved in this discussion, but I will tell you that this law was brought about in recognition that there were short-term rentals occurring within the village, and the goal was to get those short-term rentals into compliance. All right, it was not to punish the people for doing it before the law was enacted, and there are legal arguments that it's legal or not, but in any event, that was the goal. And so now we're seeing the realization of that goal, which is to bring people into compliance. In fact, you're upset that this gentleman has been permitted to continue pending the application. That's fine, but it's not going to be an issue for this board. Okay, that's an issue for the village. And for enforcement. But what I can assure you is that in accordance with the dictates of what we have to judge on, we'll make a grant or not, and should we make the grant, and the person will be in compliance, and there will be more protection for your than there was before. That's my 2 cents.
Well,
You can finish. Yeah.
And this is actually something more for Peter than it is for here. How, in fact, you monitor
Exactly.
the 6 months residency? I don't know how you do it, and I don't know. How you do it.
I don't know how I would do it, I would rely on the neighbors. To tell them, what else we should, I'm not gonna drive up there every night and see, knock on the door, I think living.
Well, okay, I'll let Frank, you, yeah.
Thank you. Frank Roscoe, 35 Oakland Loop. One of the concerns is with the issues that Mr. Diaz has had, spillage in his place, noise where neighbors had to call him or possibly even call the sheriff one time. And with this dog issue, we had it once and the mayor had Bob come up and explain to the tenant about the dog off the leash. Following day, it happened again. I sent an email to the mayor. And the day after that, it happened for a third time.
Okay.
So the issue I have is you have weekly weekend rentals. You will have 52 people, families there every week, which means that, or through the year, which means that the opportunity for problems is so much greater because you do not get to know who's living next to you for the weekend. It's like a hotel.
Exactly.
I don't want a hotel, and I think the majority doesn't want a hotel environment. The whole thing is community. The last 5 letters, unity. But we're not going to be in that direction if we allow weekend renters or any short-term renters, ideally 6 months from inquiring with other developments. 6 months is basically the minimum. in regard to rentals, and you get to know who's next door to you. You don't have to worry that you have a child playing, and I had a neighbor who was very concerned because these last renters that Mr. Diaz had. Now, it is common ground, but we sort of respect everybody and don't run across the yards. Well, they came every time with the dog across, and my neighbor had asked in one of the townhomes, who are these people? I've seen them crossing in front. So this is the issue, and that's why, you know, ideally 52 rentals a year, you're asking for problems, and the community will go, it will sink.
I understand. All right, however, again, it's gonna sound like a broken record, but we're applying the rules that we have in the law. Your argument is that this shouldn't be happening at all in Victoria Lands, right? That's essentially your
Weekend
argument.
rentals, no, 6-month rental, put it in.
But there's nothing in the law that prohibits somebody from doing that.
No,
See, that's the problem, all right?
so you have a law right now in the village pertaining to rentals.
The short term rentals.
Short-term, meaning short-term is what term?
But it basically doesn't really define that.
It's up to 30 days.
As long as the owner knows the difference. So it doesn't define.
Right.
Now, in regard to knowing whether or not Mr. Diaz is there 6 months, what is his mailing address?
Fair question.
Doesn't get mail.
What is his mailing address?
That's what Dan said, it's their question.
That's the
answer.
I have a question for you, if you don't mind just to follow up.
Sure.
You had mentioned several instances here, one involving the sheriff, one involving calling Gary or being on Gary. I just wanted to make sure those are all related to the same property, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
33, he's the only one at present renting. Thank you.
Madeline Brasso, I live with Frank.
Something different for us.
I just want to ask you to know that it wasn't that the dog got loose. Every day, your tenant took the dog to the back behind her home and unleashed the dog and played with the dog in the retention pond. The dog ran down the road to the village, and this is after he was notified. And every day, he continued to do the same thing. A few weeks ago, you had your place rented, and there were guests that came, and they did have sort of a little party going on. So I just want you to know that just because you think you're giving them the rules, we live there, and we live next door, and we see it all. And that's really not fair to our community.
I concur with that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Ajay.
Ajay,
Go ahead.
yeah, Ajay, AJ, 39 Gentlemen. So I am one of the neighbors who have a child, which Frank was mentioning. There were so many different instances. The guests who were staying with the dog, they were just using our backyard. I mean, I know it's like a common space, we all respect our privacy, but it's just totally weird to just see someone walking their dog off the leash, with the dog off the leash, and she just like peeking into our through the windows into our house and having a look. Like, I just asked them, like, I mean, you live here? And he's like, gives an attitude, yeah, I live here. And one more thing, sorry, one more thing. I've seen the dog off the leash 3 times, and I can vouch for the fact that it was not the same instance Frank noticed, because Frank and Madeline live 2 houses from mine. So I would have obviously seen Frank or Madeline outside the house if it was the same instance. One instance, it was in front of the house along the driveway. There are so many other people who have dogs, small dogs, different shapes, different breeds, whatnot. And to have the dog just like running around there without the leash on, and the guests were not even in the presence. Like, they were probably inside the house. And the other 2 times I've seen the dog off the leash is when the dog went through our backyard into the stormwater drain, when like to play with the snow, probably. I don't know what the reason was, But I want to reiterate the fact that it's just not Frank and Madeline or anyone else who has seen the dog on the leash. I've noticed it as well, so it's multiple instances, it's not a one-off.
So what? I have no idea, all right, no. But what I would suggest is when, if in fact these are approved, all right, that when you have an issue, you make sure that the code enforcement officer knows about it, because that shows the record, because you actually have control. And the control is, and we alluded to in our discussion, is that should the use of the property become problematic, the village has the authority to revoke the use of it. And continued violations of personal space, I'll call it that. Parties, whatever it may be, when brought to the attention of the village, could form the basis for a revocation of the permit. So, well, you've got the situation now, I understand.
Yeah, and this happened over the weekend, and I knew that there was a meeting on Tuesday, and that's the reason I didn't really, approach the officer or anything.
Well, I would suggest that in any of these situations, if we do this, in the future, irrespective, I don't care whose short-term rental it is, I don't care if it's a licensed short-term rental or not, that you make the village aware of it, because that's the way it's gonna have to be dealt with.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
Frank Tedesco, I'm at 45 in Wege. What is the exact relationship between the zoning board and the village board that makes law? I understand what you said, that you don't make the law, but do you not give feedback to the village board?
And the village board is sort of here because our mayor is here. but no, there is communication, but we have very different roles.
Here's what I'm asking it, is I understand that law was passed not too long ago in reaction to something. You're getting some feedback here that's additional reaction,
Right.
that calls for some perhaps review. And not everybody here is gonna wanna go to the village board, and I don't know that the village board is gonna want everybody else to go to that. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
When we talk about short-term rental, maybe it doesn't have to be 6 months, but if someone's renting your place for 3 months, they're invested in that place. They don't want to be thrown out. Somebody that's there for a weekend doesn't care. By the time you catch up with them, they're long gone.
And there's another person in here the next day.
And
Same problem.
who's monitoring this?
Okay.
I mean, we're supposed to go on to Airbnb and see if what weekends he's written up. Who's monitoring that he is actually in residence for 6 months? I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
I'm sorry, what's your name?
Donna Tedesco.
Thank you. I have one question for you, sorry, Madeline Grasso again, with the, and I don't know if you can answer it. With the star exemption for tax purposes, what are the requirements for living in your primary residence? I know it has to be your primary residence.
I have zero knowledge.
That's something to look into, whether someone qualified for that or not. Or anybody.
That's gonna be up to him, he's gotta make an application for the start.
Yeah, well, I'll call a text.
Right, I got some.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, and thank you all for letting us come and air our concerns and our opinions. And I appreciate that you're facilitating this in a very calm manner, so thank you very much for doing a great job. So my name is Linda Mom.
You get ready on.
Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Linda Mom. I do live at 31 Hillman Loop. I am the adjacent neighbor in the townhome. I actually came to the neighborhood from Albany, where I lived almost 30 years. I came here because this was more, kind of promoted as a very family-oriented community. So I want to start with that because to me, this is a community. I see all of these people almost on a daily basis out walking, talking, getting together, and I really enjoy that in my surroundings. Although, sorry guys, I'm kind of busy and I don't always get to socialize. But I do work and I get up very early. I have been very fortunate to have great neighbors. I have Ryan Susko next door, and I have Julie and Miguel. I had Julie and Miguel living next door to me, and they have been most gracious neighbors. They have been very respectful up until, as Miguel pointed out, that in the late summer, they started to rent out this property. And I didn't know it was an Airbnb at the time. And Miguel, yes, every time I asked you to turn the stereo down or the bass down, because it was 10 o'clock at night, and I think the zoning and the noise control, I think that's reasonable. And even some nights it's 10:30, you know, I do get up at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning, so I think that that's reasonable. And they were always very prompt to respond. I would tell you that in recent times, I've had one occasion where I sent a text, and I got a response from Julie. And she told me that they weren't home, but the tenant was there, and that they would send them a message and ask them to turn the stereo down. So some time passed, but they did turn the music down. And as recent as probably, I would say 3 weeks ago, the music was loud. It was after 10, and I usually kind of like, I have a sound machine in my bedroom because that is my adjacent wall. So we use a sound machine, we use earplugs, we try to find other ways to get around this. Because we have not had major issues. But this particular night, only 3 weeks ago, so I don't know, Miguel, when you put that sound controlling in on your speakers, but the music was loud, and it was 10:25 or 10 something at night. I sent a message to Julie, I got no response. I sent a message to Miguel, I got no response. I waited another half an hour or more, and it's after 11 o'clock. I sent another text message somewhere around 11 o'clock. I could look up the exact time, maybe, I don't know. But the point is, I still have to get up at 5:30 in the morning. And so I reluctantly called the sheriff. Actually, I called Saratoga Police because I didn't know I had to call the sheriff, because I don't call police. Because I have a neighborhood and I work with my neighbors. That's what I try to do. I ended up calling the sheriff and I said, look, I don't want to be a pain. I said, but I don't know what else to do. And frankly, I'm not going to go to that door and knock on it because I don't know who's over there. I have no idea who's in the house next door. And I do have children that visit my home. And I do appreciate that you have a child and you want to know who's living in your neighborhood and be familiar with them. So I am very concerned about that. So those two, and Miguel, it's not personal because you're not there. It's me, it's my family, it's these people and their families. This is our home. So I'm just looking at my notes because I wanted to make sure I made some key points here. You know, if this is approved as a short-term rental, I'm not confident that this won't happen again. And I choose my dogs. I let the dog go because I'm like, you know what, I almost feel like I'm giving up because I feel like it's been going on for months and nobody has done anything. They don't care about the other residents that are living here and having something. I had that individual walk the dog. I actually came in from work in the evening and I came into my home and looked straight to the back window and there was somebody standing there with a dog staring in my window. And when they saw me, then they walked away. That was seriously though, I'm trying to be respectful because I do respect Miguel and his wife. I understand what they're trying to do. I appreciate that you want to travel, but that I am still at my home and it doesn't feel as my home now. It feels like I'm in a short-term rental. My other concern about this is as we go into the summer months, Saratoga's not far away. It's an Airbnb. Let's go for the weekend. People, I think we've all been to Saratoga and we know how that is in the summer. And I think that approving this is actually going to set a precedent for other properties. I apologize for my opinion, but it is my opinion. And I think that what's going to happen is you're going to see the slippery slope. And I think that this is no longer going to be our homey residential neighborhood, but the whole village is going to turn into a short-term rental situation. And it's a shame. It breaks my heart because I look at all these beautiful homes down here. I look at the beautiful homes that we have there. And I'm going to stop there because I am feeling a little emotional about it because this is my home. So respectfully, I thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. And I thank the board.
Thank you for your attendance.
I have a question for you. Have you approached your HOA?
Have I approached my HOA?
Yeah, about this.
Actually, I came down to the meeting one evening here. And I don't know the exact date, I'd have to look. But I came down and the HOA would not hear comments. Yes.
I don't want this to be an anti-HOA, I just want to.
Elected into the place, they are trying to get this thing started up, but I think they also trying to realize that we're all human, we all live. My experience as much as it is anybody else.
8 months, no property management. No.
Yes, sir.
My name's Lou Police, I'm at 20 Ordelia Lane. So I just want to make a couple, I mean, I echo a lot of the comments that were said, but specific to the application, I'd like to make a couple of comments, a question and maybe a comment. So my question is, you know, when Mr. Diaz, when you were asking Mr. Diaz questions earlier, I thought I heard him say that he travels for 3 or 4 months a year, and then in the summertime, he rents it on weekends, it goes to his brother-in-law's house or somewhere. So I didn't hear anywhere in there what 6 months in a row that he expects to fully occupy that house. That's question number one.
Then, you know, that's a really good comment, by the way. The legislation says 6 whole months. It doesn't say that they need to be meticulous, but it does say 6 whole months, and that's something I think we have to consider.
12 months during the year.
6 whole months during the year.
Yeah, I didn't know what 6 full months. So
So,
I heard, I wasn't sure what 6 months they were, you know. That's my first. And while you're looking at that, my other point is that the HOA documents do require renters to adhere to the bylaws and the declaration of the association. Now, the association, in those bylaws also are some remedies for people who don't adhere. But those remedies are all well beyond the weekend. So whenever someone comes in and is only there for a weekend, by the time some of the most serious of those remedies take place, that person's been gone a long time. So you really need to understand that this is when you're dealing with a short-term rental, that there's not going to be a responsibility on the part of the renter to really follow the bylaws. But the real question is, or real point is, beyond that, is what evidence do we have that the renters, even those that only come for a weekend, are made aware of the documents that govern the HOA? I mean, you know, yeah, you can check off rules from Airbnb. Where is the evidence that renter actually has signed off on knowing the rules of the association?
well, that's a really good point, and in fact, again, I keep phrasing this as should the board, all right, should the board be inclined to approve this, that could be a condition, all right? We could absolutely require that the rules of the HOA be posted, that they be provided to any tenant. But it's a really good comment, and I want to remember that. So, can we remember that? Yes.
I have 2 points that I want to say. My name is Lindy Jones. I live at 37 Hillman. Firstly, I never got a letter from Mr. Diaz to say that he was applying for Airbnb, and I'm 2 doors away from him.
Okay.
The other is that this last renter, they have obviously rules in the house that they must park on the drive, no on-road parking. The renter parked on the road outside of the house, didn't even pull on the drive, just left the car there. So, you know, everybody else who lives in this neighborhood, they comply with the no parking on the road.
No, they don't.
No, they don't.
My neighbor across the street doesn't do it.
It's nice to hear. But these people who rent, they don't have a vested interest in the neighborhood.
I do understand, but I've gone through the spiel.
I know, I
You know,
understand that, and Mr. Diaz says that the rules are in there, but he can't make people adhere to those rules.
Yeah, but the same could be, well, it's not, you understand, the same could
Yeah,
be said for
I
any
do.
kind of short-term rental, irrespective of short-term rental law, you know.
Yeah,
Any any tendency whatsoever. But I understand. And
But it's another grievance,
I-
that is it.
I really, I appreciate this. Yeah.
Could we ask Mr. Diaz, what was the purpose of his purchasing of the property?
We can answer that, so you put that in our head. Yeah,
Hi, I'm Paula Doyle. I live at 3 Hill and Loop and I'm on the HOA board.
yes.
And we are looking at this very closely and we are, right now, there is a petition, so we had talked to Tom about putting forth from our attorney a statement. The statement right now is technically, there is no, it is not prohibited for short-term leases. So these Airbnbs are allowed right now. We are moving forward. We are looking at the petition. We are, we've been meeting frequently about it. There is if Mr. Diaz's people are non-compliant, we don't go after the leasee, the person renting the house. We go after the person who owns the house.
Right.
So we can find these people. So irregardless if they've been gone 3 months, if they violate a rule and we're made aware of it, we can implement a fine to the owner. That's what our declaration requires, to go after the owner. So we are looking at that, and we're also looking at our declarations also say that these lessees have the opportunity for enjoyment on the property. So we have to be very careful how we're navigating that. They're allowed, the village isn't forcing them out. They are allowed to rent. We have nothing against it right now. So we have to be very careful. We just can't make up things as we go along. We have to follow suit. So, and
I
again,
imagine you'll be talking about the civil law at your next board meeting.
absolutely. No, we're on top of it. And
I'm not
if anybody wants to talk to us about it, I wasn't aware. I'm sorry, Donna, but Linda, we did not hear from you from the last one, but we do take it and put down. We have received over 1,000 emails from people about all of these issues. We are addressing them. We are looking at the petition. We're not turning our back on it. If everybody wants to move in a direction to prohibit it, that's what will be. It's up to the community to make the decision, but we have to follow the process. It's going to be lengthy. Tom, you would know, it's like, there's a lot to changing declarations. There's a lot to changing bylaws. We follow New York State not-for-profit law. We don't make it up as we go along. So it is, I understand people's frustration, but we are working on it.
Oh, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Jump in the back of the hand up.
I just wanted to mention that I ran into a friend of mine at the mall today who lived in a development in the capital district. And their HOA bylaws strictly prohibit rentals, period. So they show by the preponderance of their residents, I think there's 62 units or whatever, and the majority rule there, and they just outlawed it entirely. So it's a possibility for consideration, but as Paula said, work has to be done.
And your name, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm done with where I live at 15 Wege.
Thank you. I thought maybe Gary, you wanted to say something. Yes, sir.
So I'm gonna give you this, just so you can read it. This is in our HOA books. Now, it all comes out Veteran Tundy, 16 Hillman. My biggest concern is that we're losing sight of one thing. It's got nothing to do with the zoning board, because the zoning board, you got your laws and you're gonna do it. What it really comes down to is our HOA board. And when I understand there is a petition in place that we're gonna have to work through. My question to you, number one, is a way to give it time for the HOA to get things in place. I was hoping this would have been done months ago, because in fact, I referred that I think language was the most important thing we needed to change in our documents, because they're pure garbage that we got from Amador, let's face it. But the thing is, we have more than enough residents that have signed the petition in our association that they restrict short-term rent. Now, what is what short-term rent? Short-term, like on this house. You know, we're not talking 6 months. Somebody wants to rent it for 6 months, a year, 2 years. They can't sell your house. You want to rent it in the meantime while you're trying to sell. Go rent it. Nobody's saying that. And I think the mistake is in that interpretation right there. If you read it, that.
You want to read it aloud?
I'll read it out loud. This is section 9.09, owner responsibility for lease. The owner of a home shall provide the lease. Shall comply in all aspects with the terms of the declaration. The bylaws, rules, regulation, association. If a lease is in violation of the declaration of bylaws and rules and regulations, the board of directors shall so notify the owner of the home which is such lease occupies in writing. The violation is not cured, eviction proceedings commence. Eviction. Term eviction. Do you normally evict a 2-day renter?
Only 1 day.
Only 1 day renter?
I hear you.
Later in there says any kind of lease. I interpret it, and the majority of people interpret it. Lease is normally a period of a year or 6 months. Now, where you get.
Hold 1 second. I think
I do apologize, I absolutely, so I.
You spend a lot of time.
I don't know.
Don't know what we think.
Yeah. I'm not feeling. All right, we'll keep tabs on the.
Are you recording? I can pick up the time.
Just recording.
Pick up any.
I love technology.
Yes.
I can't use it, but I love this.
So-
I'm sorry. Okay.
And then
Okay,
you
so.
can get copies of each of
Yeah,
them
that's what I wanted.
provided. Here we go.
Getting back to lease. So I think it's a means of interpretation that it seems like, you know, our board feels that lease means anything. I've been involved in construction my entire life. I've owned rental property my entire life. I've lived off my rental property my entire life. I have also owned with my daughter in Florida, a project that I'd like to at least explain in public why I'm as adamant against this as I can be. We bought a project 13, 14 years ago for my daughter to live there. 13 years ago, we yeah, was it about 16 years ago? Yeah, now she lived in it for quite a while. And it was expressed because I had a lawyer on, but you know, in Florida, they go with title companies and they don't even use lawyers. But I insisted on a lawyer. I go, Nicole, we're doing it with an attorney to protect your interests. Just give you a little background. It's just a story, means nothing for years. But in the case, there was expressed in all the paperwork that no rentals would take place. This is a residential neighborhood. Fine. But after about 10, 12 years, shootings, murders, muggings, everything went to lease. 60% lease went into the department. And we ended up selling it, and we all started considerable amount of money. It's a material, water over the dam at this point. But that went to leasing. We don't even do those in, especially short-term leases. Now, a long-term lease, I have confidence in it, because you have more confidence. Because of the nature, the background, there's more scrutinized people, and they have something to lose. But a short-term lease is not something, you know, they come and go, we don't know who they
So
are.
you argue, in essence, you're arguing to two boards simultaneously.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is, exactly, because unfortunately, I feel that after all, under a year, the most important thing, I think I stress to the board and to everybody I spoke to, language has to be changed. Because that is ambiguous, when you read that, it says lease. But I venture that, do Google search on lease. What is? If you read it in your documents, and I read it before I bought. What does it mean? Okay, if I haven't read it, release it, I will. A year, 6 months, or whatever it might be. I'm not considering it to be 2 days. And in fact.
I understand.
Yeah, okay, and I'm gonna cut it short because I know I'm taking up all our time.
Well, but the language you're concerned about is HOA.
Yeah, yeah,
So-
it's really got to be your language, it's our document.
But I will also tell you that I have the comments, I mean, look, you're arguing against the notion of short-term rentals for Victorian landers.
Exactly.
I got that, and as I said before, we still have the law to deal with. But frankly, if you're really opposed to short-term rentals in any form, any guise from Victorian landings,
We're gonna.
you have
We're gonna.
Gary, something for.
These my personal friends, even though I might disagree with them, they're gonna be my friends. Okay. But the idea is, I think they just read too much into a lease, because I checked into a lease. With the terminology of a lease, let me see if I can find it here for you. You might list your home when you travel, rent, or private home. This is about Airbnbs, by the way. And private vacation. However, it's important to remember, running an Airbnb is a business. It's commercial. We are not to conduct commercial endeavors in our business. Now, our homes become commercial, not residential anymore.
Does that include the business you're running in your basement with your
Right,
son?
you know what?
Hey, you know what?
Guys, hold on,
Is
God.
it's
Let's stop. Okay, hold on.
Hey.
Again. We can tell stop. I got one in to try both folks, okay? This is not a meeting where we yell at each other, all right? The board is getting information. The board is certainly getting understanding of how you feel. Now, how you feel may not be what we can deal with.
Now, let me explain to you what that is. And like.
No.
Doesn't understand.
Yeah, we got a comment. I'd be more than happy. I'm gonna bring you to a conclusion very soon. That's great, I got somebody have to.
Okay, quick question, you had mentioned that, your law states how it affects neighborhood adversely.
Yeah,
So basically, I think as a zoning board, it needs to be decided what adversity means. And just because it affects Victorian land use, doesn't mean it's not going to affect center of the town here.
of course. it will.
What goes up there. So basically, what I'd like to give you is an article about how, maybe not at the beginning, how you basically have an increase in crime, change of an,
Well, Liz is unable to appeal.
Right.
We'll be happy to take that.
So there's a copy for each of you,
Great.
and just for another point, you don't put a traffic light in after an accident, you put a traffic light before
But
the accident.
I'm gonna say it one more time. Because one time, to appreciate the difference between legislation and.
Right, but you're talking about adversely affects.
I understand that, but the legislative import that there are short-term rentals permissible in the village. All right, with your argument would deny anybody the opportunity to have a short-term rental. That's not what the law means, okay?
Okay, so let me ask you a question. The house that is the across the street from the church.
Yeah.
Have you not had problems at that house?
They're having problems, as far as I know. I mean,
There has not been any?
no, as far as I know, they're having.
Okay, that's what we don't want to, for like,
I
we don't
understand.
want to increase.
I understand, we don't want problems in this part of the village either. Nobody wants
That's what I'm
problems.
saying, so
But what I'm telling you, and you have to understand that there is legislation that's been passed that permits this kind of use. All right?
but unless
There-
it adversely affects.
Your argument would mean that nobody, because you might have bad people come in or whatever, that nobody can have short-term rental in the village. It cannot mean that, all right? So I agree that the term adversely affect is pretty vague, all right? We had a discussion, and my opinion is that it really refers to cumulative impact. That may not be the opinion that wins, and it may not be a proper legal opinion. All right, but it does not mean that because you're worried that the neighborhood will decline, whether that's true or not, okay? But that's an adverse impact, right? Because it goes against the law, it permits the use. That's my opinion. Maybe you win the day with the rest of the board. That's okay, all right? That's why we have 5 members of the board. So,
Okay.
but I understand what you're saying. I really get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just add one thing to it. I think one thing that I would like to hear more of is, well, I think we've agreed upon is that a pattern practice, does. And it's the material. So if there is an existing pattern, where this has been going on for months. I've heard trespassing, I've heard the sheriff call, I've heard noise complaints, several of them, I've heard there's no immediate enforcement mechanism in the sense that, like, if the owner's not there, it doesn't seem like there's any local owner's representative who's going to be addressing problems that are arising in the moment. So, you know, those seem pretty material to me. And we're not dealing with a blank slate here. We're dealing with somebody who's been operating for several months, you know, in a gray area of the law, as it were. And so, yeah, I guess what I'd love to just reinforce to everybody here is, like, you know, any material stories that you guys have about issues that have already come up. And it's, you know, it's pretty clear that this is going to go into another meeting. There's probably other rentals going on between now and then. You know, any material issues that come up would be really helpful for us in rendering some sort of.
Yep, that's a good point. That's a very good point. All right, so unless we have something new, I think I want to table so we can discuss this.
Just one quick thing, it's very simple and I'll be very nice.
You will. You promise.
Because, well, not getting into that. I did a search, what anybody can do, and you're all welcome to do it. And an Airbnb is an Airbnb the same as a lease. The answer, no lease agreement in place. There is no need for a lease agreement if you have your house rules and Airbnb. Also, it is set up for rules to help protect owners. This means that if a guest breaks your house rules, you can reach out to the Airbnb immediately, as he said, instead of having to enter a long, drawn-out legal matter. They don't consider their Airbnb a lease. Terminology is what I'm saying. I think we're missing. No.
So don't make it for the zoning board.
No, this is for the general public, so they can hear it.
I think it's great. I think it's.
And
But the time to argue with the HOA is with the HOA.
well, yeah, it's definitely would be, I agree wholeheartedly. It is the HOA, and I know we have some things going on there, and I think we'll work it out. And I know we have more positive people that are against it, that are definitely for it. So My next question, and I'm gonna end it here, is there a way of tabling this?
We are
To
taking.
give them time, our board, time to work on it.
Well, I don't know if we have. I don't. You will be permitted about one of those projects, right? We are going to table this, right? And, but we're not tabling it for the HOA. We're gonna table it for our own benefit because we heard a great deal here. And we need to process it, right?
Right.
And when we come back next time, we may have more questions, right? Or we may have a different perspective, but so.
Yeah, for all of the information that I gained.
Now, your turn.
Why did you buy in the village why did you buy in the landing to begin with? Mr. Diaz.
But you know what? I have no problem listening to the question. I don't want this to be a colloquy. But I'll be happy to answer it. If Mr. Diaz, you can answer or not, all right? But the question is, why did you purchase the property in Victoria Land? Was there a business intent?
Yeah, I would be happy to answer any question from any neighbor, anytime, if they're willing to ask me personally, privately, like the way I've had conversations with other neighbors, not in this form though.
Okay. Frank, and I'm really getting tired. Go ahead.
I'll be go home, go to sleep.
So you get to a certain age.
But anyway, so the bottom line is, it's your decision whether or not these weekends continue. Is that correct? That's what this meeting is for, to see if he's granted that permit.
I guess that's up to me, and I'm gonna tell you now, if they don't have a decision by the next meeting, I'm gonna revoke his ability to have an Airbnb. Yeah,
And
I
when's
can't
the
let
next
this
meeting
stand.
going to be?
I don't know when your next meeting is, next month.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be.
So if you guys can't make a decision by the next meeting, Mr. Diaz, you can't operate an Airbnb in Round Lake.
Well,
I will hold you to that, people.
Okay.
And I have one more regarding the pet situations. That's something you're going to
You may
address.
well, you heard Dan's concerns, and I bring this up the board once a year. We've heard that.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay, so you're going
But
to
that's,
make
I
that
gotta tell you, a dog being loose on a one-time basis wouldn't be present during life, you know.
one-time basis.
But. Right, we can discuss it.
Ben. From my perspective, what I heard from that story that concerned me the most is not so much that it happened, it's that it happened repeatedly and there was no local owner representative to deal with that.
Right, that's what my problem was. I sent the guy up there, nobody responded. I called Mr. Diaz on the phone. He never responded, and this went on for 3 days. I had no response. We need to have somebody available 24/7 on any Airbnb.
Did you make sure that's in the record, Grace?
Yeah.
I want that there. That's important. Okay, yeah, it is important. As I said, these are new to us as well as to you. And so we're developing expertise, and I think that's a very good point, and I like it. And I think that's something we have to consider.
I have a question, just like sort of pro forma, one of the requirements here is that it's been inspected, the dwelling unit has been inspected by the village code enforcement officer. Is determined that it meets all the needs, the New York State Uniform Code health department requirements, I didn't see any certification of that in the application.
We discussed, yeah, that's correct. We discussed this last time, and although the application is designed for that, in fact, we allowed that to be a condition, all right, on the grant, so that should the application meet all the specifications, then the inspection would happen, and if it failed the inspection, then it would not be granted. So it'd be a conditional grant.
Is there a cost to the inspection taking place before?
No.
Then why wouldn't we just have
It
it?
just had to happen. I have no problems with people doing it.
No, I just meant as a matter of, like, a matter of our, there's gonna be a lot of them. So, I just wanted to figure out like what our steps are when we sit down to look at one of
It
these,
should be done.
should I expect to see?
It should be done.
Okay, good.
To mention, if there was a comment on the floor, so ZBA obviously has no legislative power, but we do have some advisory power, and so from our board meeting.
Yeah.
And we will get some feedback for how the applications being in, so to your point, we're actually asking for that clarification.
Right, so I'm about to be approving them as complete
Correct.
before we get to a meeting, before they're scheduled for a meeting, so we recognize that, but yeah.
Can I just ask one question? I've had my hands.
Okay.
I'm Margie Rector at 8 Cordelia. And I have a question on insurance. How do you decide how much insurance you should have? Because these are all attached to one building. So if you have a fire, it's going to pay the whole building.
It's in the local law.
It's in the local, that's what I wondered if that was set up. So he only has to have the insurance to cover his and not the other two that would be attached.
It's this tenants.
It's 500,000, is the coverage amount, it's in the law.
Right, well, we would still, we could still sue him if, for the loss.
I would imagine.
So, yeah.
I'm not an attorney, but I think
The loss.
Thank you. For participating. Motion to table. Okay, no. Take a little break. Miguel, we're taking just a little break while the folks exit the building. Hang out, don't leave.
We're taking a break.
Oh, okay, thank you. I couldn't hear anything.
Hang on there. Stay there.
I actually need to go. Can anybody hear me?
The case of holding it open.
No, it's a defective public hearing, because notice doesn't have to be given.
Well, this didn't happen.
No, we should, it's a public meeting. But we should.
Yeah,
Close the meeting. And then schedule a new public hearing on whatever day Danny said.
Okay, see
Yeah, that's why, you hear us like kind of asking a little bit about what are the actual merits of issues, right? And look at the law, it said adverse impact, and we have to like figure out some of these.
I think I can do that. After listening to everybody saying this. This could drag on. It shouldn't.
Understand. No, and I agree, that's like I said, my concern is not.
That's why, well, the problem is.
That's like, that's that somebody raises. And the next day that issue. And again,
Yeah, how?
yeah,
I'll be asking that also too.
right on. Thank you, Vanessa.
There's Mr. Peterson. What did I do wrong?
Yeah, so what, we need to make a motion.
I don't know. Tom jumped up, so I can give you my was, Tom jumped up.
Okay, yeah. I understand.
Where's my-
I don't know. Well, Maya is still here, so she.
Okay.
Maybe she had done that. Okay.
What did I do wrong?
I'd like the board to determine that this was not a valid public hearing, because the notice had not been given.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. And schedule a public hearing, give a date for the next public hearing.
Yes.
And then take over the minutes, and then close the meeting.
Question for you. The notice, I know that we have a legal requirement to provide notice, which we did as a board, right?
We didn't do
Posted
it.
in the
No, I
hall.
killed it.
Agreed, and we only considered 33 tonight. There's an applicant requirement that they notice their neighbors.
And it is not suggested that this board, given its authority to handle its own administrative and procedural matters, take over the notification of neighbors, so that we get the letters right, so that we have affidavits of service, so we have something to put in the minutes. We can prove that we've gone through
Do we not
the.
typically already do that with
Other
other
do
types?
it different, yes, we do,
Okay.
absolutely. We discussed this with Kim, Alex and I, and Kim. Of course, Kim is going there.
Right.
But, and we thought that either she does the notification, as a matter of course, or that she supplies those who need to be noticed to the applicant, who then provides proof. of
Because the
notification.
local law doesn't
Because
say
we
that
don't-
it's up to the applicant to do it. The local law says that it needs to be done. It doesn't say that.
That's correct.
But it's up to the applicant.
Right, that's correct. So when they.
I'd much rather have the village clerk do that.
I agree.
I agree.
Is
No.
email notification sufficient?
I'm not sure it is,
This
quite
board
frankly.
needs to clarify that. Because the local law is general in many ways. And we can't. Add anything to the local law substantively.
Right.
But we can add something to the local law with the procedural requirements. And I think that we ought to take over the notification. Because having all these people show up and then not be able to render a determination. Because a non-lawyer didn't know how to do an affidavit of service and an appropriate notice of hearing. You can fault the man. Yeah.
No, that's
Right,
exactly what I'm
I
saying.
agree.
So what else do?
I agree.
I agree.
So it's done. That's. Motion, I think that's procedurally. If that's all right, Gary, we can turn that over to the village clerk.
Sure, why not?
Okay.
Okay.
And it has to be updated
done.
on our
Let's do it.
process.
Okay,
I just feel
But
that
do
there's-
we,
And it should
is
be-
email notification sufficient?
no.
I'm not sure that I feel comfortable with that.
I have to agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it really
Just
needs
what
to
we
be
do
in
for the
writing.
Neighbors in our variances, right? Don't we do that by mail?
It's my recommendation that we have letters, so we can have copies of those letters. Not do physical copies, we can scan them,
Yeah.
so it's only one sheet of paper. Then we can have a person sign an affidavit of service. That they have gone out, and we charge the applicant for the posting. Now, it's X number of feet from the house or yards or whatever. How's the applicant gonna figure that out? You go to.
No, I agree.
You
Yeah,
go
that's
to the
why-
county mapping service. And you can't expect somebody who doesn't deal with that stuff to be able to do it. So the planning agency, planning board, which is the planning board plus the people that support the board, like the secretary and me and the village clerk, need to determine who is in that circle around the applicant. Okay?
Yep.
And all the applicant has to do is to pay the postage fee.
I like the postage.
And then we do the affidavit of service. It's gonna be a real pain in the neck for the first one. And then the second one's gonna be difficult, and the third one is gonna be a big yawn. We'll know how to do it, we'll have the procedure in place.
Yep, that was already, but that's good. It's true, but I like that. Okay, good. Okay, so
Anything from Miguel?
Yeah, Miguel.
Yes, sir.
So we got some stuff to discuss. We're gonna have to table this.
Mhm.
For the next meeting, we'll provide you notice of the date. Yes,
Can we determine that date now?
I don't know.
Did we have
We
like
don't have Mark or Alex, and Alex more than.
Thursday of each month or something we're supposed to?
We did for, well, maybe not before this board. We used to, but we meet so rarely that we haven't been doing that.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we have it at the next meeting, the fourth Thursday?
It
of
depends what it
January?
is, because we have Christmas, New Year's, what have
The
you.
only reason it got screwed up was the holiday this year.
Yeah,
Normally. it
The
was
fourth
one
Thursday
day.
of January of 2023 at 6:30 p.m. at this location.
sort of a long time,
Sorry?
sort of a long time.
I would also just like to point out that as much as I hate that this is the case, I don't think I'm gonna be available for that.
That what?
I'm not available for that particular day.
Which date is that, the 26th?
Yeah,
I won't be here.
Oh,
of
okay,
January, right, we're talking about January the 26th.
correct, yeah.
Actually,
There's a chance I won't be here.
sorry, I would be maybe,
You know, there's, well,
but I
if it
agree
is,
that,
actually, if we make it,
I agree that it's a long time.
Yeah.
You know, and seems like there's a lot of concern from the residents in the area.
I just want to tell Miguel that I get emails and phone calls on a daily basis, complaints, and I'm getting tired of it. And I just want to see this resolved. I'm sure you want to see it resolved too. That's why I'd like to see the next meeting, this gets resolved.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna stop unless you guys, revoke my thing. I think you're gonna get increased complaints if you approve it, and if you deny it, then you won't get any more complaints.
I don't care if they approve it, it's good.
And then,
Done, you know?
okay, well, yeah.
Did you only rent to a dog once? A person, a couple that had a dog once?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Did you
Dogs?
rent to someone who had a dog just this one time?
Yeah.
Because it seemed like there were multiple dogs. doing-
Yeah, I know. There was several unfounded accusations there. Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
But yes, the dog rental that happened.
Miguel, well, we're gonna have to respond to part of our discussion. I mean, we're gonna continue this and
Okay,
we'll be responding to those because it is important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. appreciate that.
Yeah, you heard everything.
Yeah, I appreciate the professionalism and all that. My big concern is that question, I don't remember your name, sir, about what is a adverse material thing? Is it just a bunch of, is unfounded accusations enough? Is complaints enough? Is it dog running loose enough? What is it? So that I could adhere to,
If the sheriff's
not doing that.
property, then that's pretty well documented and material, right?
Right, but I mean, I can call the sheriff.
Sure, but I imagine
Or-
it wasn't calling the sheriff knows, right?
Okay.
Yeah, we don't know.
But you don't know, that's the thing. Like, I've had my neighbors ask me to remove my bird feeders from my backyard. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
you should-
this is not a meeting.
Let me
Something you're
speak,
saying, yeah.
let me speak. I'm trying to do one thing at a time. Right now, we've gotten past the fact that we're gonna handle the publication. Now we're moving on to the scheduling. We're gonna meet at 6:30 on the fourth Thursday
Yeah, Tom,
of January of
Oh,
2020.
no, but wait a minute, can we change it Thursday?
Right, you want, or.
I actually looks like I could make that, but it sounds like Maya can't. Right? Is that right?
There's a chance I won't.
And we need at least 3 readings.
All right, make it, my one, do you know?
What's that?
Do you know when you'll know? You can make it.
We still have Mark on it.
I know, I'm gonna have to give it up on Mark. I gotta go rap on his door.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I.
The
should
following
be
week
here.
is fine. There's,
What about the 19th instead? That's a week earlier.
We have enough time for notice? if we get that after Christmas before New Year's.
What day? My office is closed that entire weekend.
Oh, my.
Nobody's here. So what I want to know is, when is the 19th, what day of the week?
That's the third, well, I was just going for the next Thursday before it, so that's the third Thursday.
Okay,
Does that work?
do you want that?
I'm fine with any day as long as it works.
That give us enough
Let me
time
see
for
who
notice?
we will have to displace.
Yeah. Well, what about the Tuesday of the fourth week?
Tuesdays are bad. I can't make.
Yeah, yeah, Wednesday,
Tuesdays and Wednesdays are bad for me. That's
Monday.
why Thursday was such a good pick, because all Thursdays are open. Each committee.
And what was the problem with
The 26th is,
Not be able to make it.
the 26th is, this room is scheduled for the zoning board.
And the 26th is that third Thursday?
That's the fourth.
That's the fourth Thursday. That's
There's-
typically.
Yes, we're the zoning,
2, 3,
we're
4.
still on the village calendar to meet on that day.
Maya, would you have any?
No, he said he's occupied.
No, with the zoning. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, look, let's schedule a tentative meeting for the fourth Thursday.
I might be okay.
1, 2,
I need
3.
about a week, but.
Oh, okay.
January
Okay.
26th.
Okay, so then the
Next one.
26th, that's.
Is there are lots of little things that go into making proper notice and procedural stuff, like how far in advance you have to send the letters out in order to have adequate notice and other crap like that. Would you like me to put together and propose a set of administrative procedure regulations for the procedural stuff?
I would love that.
Look at it,
Yes.
change it.
Yes.
Yeah, but at least, I don't care what the answers are, but I want them to be clear so people know what to do, so that we know. Somebody says it's 5 days after notice. No, it's a written down.
Well, the zoning application form is not adequate for this type of.
No, the application, and Tom, what are we gonna do up a new application? You didn't do a new application, or you did the
I-
notice.
No.
No,
I
I mean,
did a formal letter. We send notice to your neighbor.
Exactly. Well,
I mean, the application form is bad in the sense
Yeah.
that like, it really fully acknowledges that we are only an appellate organization. It specifically says, what were you denied for?
yeah, no, the application is no good.
Okay, do you want
With
to
the,
do?
I would love you to do that.
with Ames Avenue, which is the current Airbnb in the village. That really was dictated by the village board, and they said they needed to have somebody 24/7.
Available.
Immediate available. I could call somebody on the phone, they'd be there in 5 minutes, and that's how it worked
No,
out.
I like that. I mean, that's, and we'll be discussing that, Miguel. All right, we'll be discussing that, but one of my takeaways was that from our discussion today, and I think that's a good thing.
Then we've got to have that in our application, like it's gotta be clear what exactly you want people to
And I
have.
want that person to be responsible. I don't want somebody to say, oh, my neighbor's gonna do it, but they don't know about plumbing, or they don't know who to contact about, I want somebody who can deal with it.
All right, so at this point, I think we're done with you, Miguel. You can sign off.
Yeah.
And,
Okay, oh, I don't have that meeting time yet, or are you gonna let me know?
6:30,
Hearing,
6:30,
January 26th.
January 26th, unless you hear otherwise, but we're going with that.
Thursday, January 26th.
Yep.
Okay,
And I'll
Unless
send you the link.
Yeah, don't give it to me. Don't give it to me. Please.
No.
okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Miguel.
Applicants, members of the public can appear or participate remotely. Members of this board
I
have to
know
be
that.
here.
Yeah, I knew that. I just wanted my lawyer to say it.
Last point is that the board